Yes.
Yeah, in the book Journey to Ixtlan by Carlos Castañeda, in one of the chapter he was hunting a rabbit,
Mm-hmm.
and he set a trap. And then once the rabbit got caught in the trap, he was hesitant to kill the rabbit. So
Mm-hmm.
at that, uh, Don Juan said that the time of rabbit has come, and the power that guides us in our life has brought the rabbit to the trap because its time is up. And when I heard that, I started wondering, uh, does that mean that like there's a way for people to see that death has come for something? Like, is it that kind of deterministic thing, or is he just being like kind of a confident person in that sense?
I'm going to want you to reiterate that question, but before I do that, would you mind if I tell people about the book a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Journey to Ixtlan, I think, is like the third book in a series of essentially 8 books by Carlos Castañeda. The first book is not readable, shouldn't be read, and then the books after Journey to Ixtlan become very difficult for a number of reasons, most of them having to do with Carlos himself. On the other hand, within these books is a teaching tradition, and there's 3 generations of it. There's Don Elias, then there's Don Julian, then there's Don Juan and Don Gennaro, and so we get to see teaching masters work with their students for literally generations. And so the books are useful primarily for that, for the teachings of Don Juan, Don Gennaro, Don Julian, and Don Elias. And there's also women teachers, quite a few of them in there that are also useful. So it's important not to get too caught up in Carlos. Carlos was from LA, unfortunately, and he returned to LA, and that's a very difficult town to survive in. And let's see what else. Now, Journey to Ixtlan. So what I've done is I've taken out specific chapters of several of the books, ones that I think can be useful to people in general, without becoming students of the whole series. And so it's in that spirit that I recommend and have certain chapters, that we have certain chapters from, say, Journey to Ixtlan, and maybe from The Fire from Within, or The Power of Silence, or something like that. So that's what they're there for. Okay, thank you for letting me explain that. So now what's your question?
Yeah, so in that, when he says the time of rabbit has come, it
Right.
sounds like he knew that death has come. Like he kind of knew about like the time of death of the rabbit.
So Don Juan said the rabbit's time has come.
Yeah.
They were hunting a rabbit. One had been trapped. They were going to eat the rabbit. And Carlos was getting squeamish about killing the rabbit. Correct?
Yep.
So what's the question?
So is it true that some people can tell whether like the time has come for people?
Yeah, if you've got a shotgun and someone's against the wall, you can tell when someone's time is up, right?
Mhm.
Now, I don't. They weren't using shotguns. They were using just handmade traps. Using wood and things like that, right? Yeah, if you're the hunter, you can tell when an animal's time has come because you're about to kill it, so you can eat it.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Got
Question.
The next question is about dreaming. So in the book, he 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 suggested few steps to Carlos to dream for dreaming. First, to look at his hand in the dream.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, look at objects in a dream to make them stable, and then like move his eyes away when they start to shake, and then focus back on them again. And then the third thing was to remember the objects in certain places, so that by focusing on those objects, he can travel to those places in the dream. Uh, so that's the three things that I heard in that book. Uh, are there more things, or like, can you say more on this?
Okay. So these are basic instructions for lucid dreaming, at least what you've given so far. The instructions are to look for your right hand or your left hand, probably your right if you're right-handed. And then once you find your hand in your dream, you know you're dreaming, and you can now go on further with your dreaming, lucid dreaming. The next thing is to not get too fixated on any one thing. But I don't know about that. I think the dream kind of takes care of that for you. I don't think you need to worry about that. And some people say that you can't flip light switches or whatever in a dream. That's not been my experience. I could flip on and turn off switches in a dream. And then what was the third part?
To remember the objects in certain places, so that in a dream
That's something very different. That's something very different. And that might be used for flying, or that might be used for dreaming. And so, have you ever heard of the Nazca lines in Peru?
No.
That makes it hard to explain. Do you want to look it up real quick?
Yeah.
Nazca lines, yeah. Nazca. They're these enormous lines that are carved into the ground, and these figures that you can't see. I mean, you can see part of them in a way if you're at a certain part of the hill, but some of them you can't see except. Go ahead. What does it say?
Yeah, I've seen those photos before. Yeah.
You have. Well, help people in the audience.
So basically these are like giant lines that if I am like in space or like many miles above in the air, I can see these lines carved out on the earth.
Or if you're dreaming or flying. Okay.
Okay.
Got it? Okay. Next question.
Yeah, I have follow up on that. So I was also listening to a video of Rupert Spira, who was explaining how basically how the experience of our everyday life is like a dream. And then it suddenly occurred to me that it might be possible that the process to wake up in reality might be similar to the process of waking up in the dream. So like the way I can realize in a dream that I am in a dream and actually experience it.
I think you're complicating no, it's like, let's say you go to bed and you go to sleep, right? And you dream somewhat. And then you're not dreaming, you're just asleep. And then you wake up, right? And start your day. That's what waking up is like. It's not like waking up within a dream. It's like waking up. The difference between sleep and the difference between being awake and not having woken up is greater than the difference between being asleep in bed and being in the kitchen making coffee. The difference is bigger. So it's literally waking up. You wake up. That's, it's interesting because almost all traditions include that description. So it's not like lucid dreaming. It's like waking up from sleep in your bed. Okay. Am I misunderstanding you?
No, I think, that's what exactly I asked. So yeah, that makes sense.
Or if have you ever had any anesthesia? Have you ever had anesthesia for surgery? And they knock you out?
Yeah, I have, yeah.
Waking up is like waking up. It's like you haven't seen the world before. You haven't seen reality at all before. It's totally different. It's not the same. It can't be described. It's very intense too. It changes your life. Boom, like that. Boom, your life has changed forever. Okay, sir?
Okay. My next question is again from the book Journey to Ixtlan.
Okay.
So in the there was a chapter where they went to hunt power, and then Carlos saw basically like an animal about to die, and then as he was watching the animal about to die, it kind of flew in the air, made a loud noise, and then fell down. And then after some time, he realized it was just a log of wood and not an animal. But then Don Juan told him that if you that now because you are thinking, it has become a log of wood. But when the power touched it, it was an animal.
Mm-hmm.
Is he being like literal that it was actually an animal, or is he just like giving an analogy or something else?
Let's say an old man is lying sleeping in his bed, and there's no lights. There's just moonlight coming into the window. And he sees this shape, and it's shaped like a man. And the old man gets scared, has a heart attack, and dies from the fear. What do we say about that shadow? Was it really scary?
No.
What do you mean? It killed the guy.
It was the interpretation of the shadow that killed him.
But that wasn't the question. The question was the shadow scary?
I mean, it depends on the person observing.
Everything depends on the person. Some people were afraid of American soldiers. In Vietnam, other people just shot them dead. Mm-hmm. Right? Mm-hmm. Isn't everything interpretation?
But then there are also some things concrete. So, like for example, if I see a person, I can't say that the person is not a human but an animal.
You can't say that a person is an animal?
Sorry, not like it's not a human, but like maybe like a car. Like I can't totally change the person.
I'm not following you. Like, help me out here.
Like if I see a human, like a living, breathing human,
mm-hmm.
I can't say that it was like an elephant just an hour ago or just like a few minutes ago because power touched it or something like that.
Okay. What have you learned?
What have we learned?
Yeah, what have you learned from that? Yeah, you can't call an elephant a car.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Now what?
So is the thing that Don Juan is saying in the book, like, is he lying?
So you got to understand, when you're speaking to an individual student, and you have to know where that student is, what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, what they need to work on, and so Don Juan is trying to teach Carlos about his own mind, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He's trying to teach him about the second attention. Now, the means in which he does that in the desert of northern Mexico with a Peruvian anthropologist is going to be totally different than the way you would do it with somebody from New York City who's never seen a cactus in his life, right? Except in a pot, or seen a bat, for example. So this is teaching, and the other thing is this is Carlos reporting what was being said, and furthermore trying to interpret it. So you got to take several steps back, and this is the danger of these books, is that if you take what Carlos says at face value, you're going to miss you're going to miss everything. The teachings are of Don Juan, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know precisely exactly what he was trying to do with Carlos at that time. Mm-hmm. But there was a time when Carlos was afraid of that shadow, was he not?
Yeah, he was afraid of.
How could you explain that? How would you explain that to him, that you were afraid of that shadow, and that's understandable?
I would just tell him like that whatever he was seeing was like an illusion or something, and it's okay.
He already knows that. He already knows that. That's already known. That's obvious. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
So how are you going to teach him about his mind? How are you going to teach him about the second attention? How are you going to teach him about the movement of the spirit on this earth? How would you do it?
I mean, I myself have not stayed in second intention, so I don't know.
Okay, so then now you have to keep an open mind, and you have to approach this saying, okay, I don't understand this situation, but I have to be intelligent. I have to figure some things out. He's dealing with a 20-something PhD student. And he's a guy who doesn't, believe anything except for, what his professors teach him and what he's read in the books. I'm overstating it a bit, right? But basically, he's a completely left-brained man. He lives entirely on the right side. And Don Juan's trying to bring him along, I would guess. But this is where you have to use a lot of intelligence for reading these books. I know they seem simple, and on the surface they are. And those particular chapters from Don Juan, they're there to teach particular virtues of warriorship. That's what they're there for. But if you want to get into that kind of detail, you're going to have to do a lot more thinking, hardcore thinking. Okay, what is actually going on here? Because Don Juan's not a fool. He's not an idiot. And now they were his teachers. So they're doing something very specific with that very green student of theirs, who has to be both unconditioned and taught. And so there are different ways of doing it. If the Buddhist, if the Tantric, if the Dalai Lama says, okay, well, Tara is a reincarnation, a manifestation of the compassionate aspects of the Buddha in feminine form. Well, now what? You say, no, that's just a drawing. That's just a statue. You could say that, but you're going to miss the whole thing, right? So you need the second attention for some of this work. But you also need, you don't just need the right side, you also need the left side. You need both. And that's what they're trying, I believe that's what they're trying to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay. Question.
So the next one is from Tao Te Ching. I think especially from the last chapter that you read on YouTube.
Good. Thank you.
Where it mentions observe the return. Like observe the return of things, right? So I was wondering if that kind of also applies to like a this listening exercise that I do usually. So like sometimes I sit down and just listen, and I see things like coming up, like a horn of a bus or sound of a car passing by. It arises and then it goes away, and then when it goes away, the silence I experience is more than before when the object was not even there. So just by listening, I feel that the deepening of that observation happens. Is that what can also be inferred from observing the return through which?
First of all, that's a superb observation. Good for you, right? So the sound comes, but then the source remains. It's called the constant. It's called the undeparting. It's called that's which always is. It's always there. Now you may or may not experience it as intensifying after the sound or whatever, but to apply it to your own consciousness, your inner consciousness or awareness, that's superb. That's good. That's a real good step in the right direction. Because all things return to their source. All things return to just that statement. You could live with that statement and just keep it in the back of your mind and observe how true that is and how many places it applies. And one of them that it applies is to your own mind, to your own consciousness. So good. Excellent. Bravo. Next question.
So this one is about, I was thinking of how to go deeper into thought. So like I was contemplating on two approaches. One was where the thought is coming from. So like when a thought arises, from where it comes up, is there can I identify like the source of the thought, like a dark thing or something like that? But the second question was to whom the thought is coming up, and try to.
Those are two huge questions. Which one do you want to do? They're two separate and huge questions. Of course, they're one question, but the way they're phrased, there's two questions here. One is where do the thoughts
Yeah.
come from, and the second one is to whom do they occur.
Yeah, I wanna do both, but in more practical sense. Like, how can I do it as an exercise for like meditation or something like that?
Okay, let's start with where do they come from.
Mm. Yep.
Where is such a funny thing. You're familiar with Einstein, right?
Yeah.
A little bit, just this relativity.
Yep.
So what he noted, which was noted a long time before, was noted in the 2nd century and earlier, probably in India, is that uh, the things that we observe on this earth are relative. They're relative to one another. So you can't have short unless you have tall. You can't have hot unless you have cold. All right?
Yeah.
You can't have here unless there's there. Got it? So everything's relative in the apparent world.
Mm-hmm.
So where is where in reality? How would we get the coordinates of where? Let's just take the tip of your nose. Where is it? How would you tell me where it is?
So when I look down, I can see the tip of my nose.
Okay, that's from your point of view, but you're telling me where it is. I can't see that, what you're describing.
Like on your screen, on the
No,
camera.
where it is, period. Where is it? Period. I mean, is it, where are you? You're located in where? In the Western United States, correct?
Yeah, in California.
All right, so now where is that? Where is that, really?
Uh, like relative to you, like on the west side.
No, not relative. Where is it? Period. My point is that you cannot tell me where it is without comparing it to someplace else.
Yeah.
So every description that you give me of where is going to be relative.
Yeah.
But reality is not relative. Reality is absolute. That's the problem. You don't know this yet, but your mind, where is your mind?
Yeah, that sometimes it feels like it's above me, sometimes it feels like it's all around me.
Okay, leave yourself out of it. Where is it? Because see, what you're doing is you're making it relative to you.
Yeah.
So where is it without reference to you? Where is your mind? Where could it be? How would you describe where it is? Or let's do this. How would you describe where the universe is?
Yeah, I can only describe it as relatively, not.
Absolutely. And the thing is, we're dealing with the absolute. And so there's no relative. So there's no coordinates.
Okay.
So where do they come from? They appear, who knows how they appear to you? They probably appear like some, like the monster appeared to Carlos, but you're just imagining that. But I might have to talk to you that in that way. Oh, they come from your, the back of your head, or they come from between your ears or something like that. But that's all false, completely false. There is no where in reality. Every place is the same place. And the universe, it's hilarious what we've done with the universe is we put ourselves in the center of it. Mankind has put ourselves in the center. So the observable universe, by definition, we're going to be the exact center. The universe is expanding at get greater than the speed of light. How's that for just a kick in the pants for all of us, right? Oh yeah, you live in a universe, but it's expanding faster than the speed of light, so you'll never see the edge of it. There's no hope of you ever seeing the edge of it, right? It's fantastic. So we define it. We say, well, we're here, so this is the center of the observable universe by definition. But you can't place the universe anywhere. You can't place your mind anywhere. You can't place your thoughts anywhere. And you can't place your source of your thoughts anywhere. I don't want to confuse you too much, but you're a rational, scientific kind of guy, right? And so there's no coordinates here. So where your thoughts come from doesn't actually make sense. Now people are going to say, well, obviously they come from your brain. Well, we'll see. We'll see about that. Now, I think the brain is a transducer. There's no question about that. And for sensory inputs and things like that, yes, that's good. That's fine. But it's a correlate. Correlation does not prove causation. And we'll see. We'll just see. It's going to take time. It's like it took Western science quite a while to realize that space was a doomed project. And now they're having to get rid of time too, right? Because it just doesn't fit. They can't unify quantum gravity and relativity, right? And in mathematics, how do you create space in mathematics or in computation? How do you factor in? So they're taking time out, and things are making a lot more sense. I'm not a mathematician. I'm not an expert, but I think if you just pay attention, you'll see more and more of this. So, with the answer to your question about where do the thoughts come from, there is no. You have to give me coordinates, and by so doing, you've missed the whole thing. But that's an advanced teaching. All right. All right. What's the next question?
Yeah, the next one was
who's
the
Have you checked in with Ramana Maharshi about whom it might be? So this is again is the quintessential question. Who am I? Really? What am I really? I'm not a body. I have a body. I'm not a mind. I have a mind. Well, then what am I really? And that's the question. And when you answer that, you've woken up. When you've answered that finally. But no one can do that for you. But yeah, just keep at it. Sooner or later, it'll burn a hole in your pocket and it'll fall to the ground, and you'll see it's a big nugget of gold. Just keep it there as a burning question. Who am I? Or what am I? Or where am I? Or when am I? Any of those questions will do it. And then someday you wake up from your dream and you go, oh, I get it. Okay?
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah, I have a follow-up on that. So whatever way I try, whether I try logically figuring out, or whether I try like closing my eyes and seeing what's going on, it all comes to a dead end.
It all comes to what?
It all comes to a dead end.
A dead end? What's the dead end?
Dead end is like I reach a point beyond which there's nothing I can think or do.
That's perfect. That's perfect. That's not a dead end. Why do you say it's a dead end? There's nothing there's nothing you could think, nothing you can do. How can that be a dead end?
Because I didn't get the answer yet, but
you got a yet. You added a yet to it. What do you think the answer is gonna? What do you think the answer looks like?
I don't know, like what happened to Ramana Maharshi.
It's like clear light that's blazing and bright. It's like luminosity. It's like everything's on fire, but there's no flame. There's no heat. I mean, there's no heat. Clear light, is the way the Taoists describe it. I mean, the Tantric Buddhists describe it. But it's like, did you see the post where I said that I don't know who discovered water, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't fish?
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah.
Okay, what's that? What is that post? What is that about?
To me, it felt that meant that I cannot credit myself with the achievements I think I have in my life, and also Yeah, so like fish in water is like me in the world, like with consciousness.
There you go. Yeah, you're swimming in it, and that's why you can't see it. It's so obvious in retrospect. Your mind is in the
Yeah.
way. Your mind and your desires, and your attachments to things. But you'll get lucky one day, and all that stuff just gets taken away or something, like happened with Romana, or happened with Eckhart, or happened with a number of people. There's an element of God's grace in this too. Remember, it's not just up to
Yeah.
the human ego.
Yeah.
Thank God. Okay,
hmm
did I answer the question?
Yeah.
Okay,
I do have a follow up that I can do after you.
follow up.
Yeah. So sometimes I think that maybe all these questions and everything is just an exercise to bring the mind to stop, and then something can happen.
I wouldn't look at it that way. I think it's to prepare the mind and have it open for when it does happen. How it happens is actually mysterious. I think anyone would say that. But if you're closed and you're preoccupied and you're not open to it, I think this probably happens to some people and they just pass it by because they don't have any preparation. They don't even know what they're passing by. I wouldn't be surprised if some fisherman someday is out there on some alpine lake and he's casting his rod or whatever, and all of a sudden, and he goes, "Weird! Oh wow, man, am I having a stroke? Everything looks so bright today, and everything looks so beautiful and gorgeous, and but he then closes it off very quickly because he's worried about catching a fish." Do you see what I'm saying? I suspect that is probably the case, and so what you want is for people to be alert and aware and ready, so when it happens they don't shut it down, because it's very easy to shut down by just self-ish thoughts or desires or anything related to the me, I, mine, ego. That shuts it right off. Well, it doesn't shut it right off, but it's the beginning and the end when that starts to happen. So you could wake up completely and you're just blissed out completely, right? That could be for like hours. And then thoughts start to creep in. And that's the death knell.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just talking about the opening experience, right? The first opening experience. Okay, sir?
Yep.
Question.
How are you feeling?
I'm gonna have to stop pretty soon, but we have another 15 minutes or so.
Okay.
10-15 minutes. Thank you for asking.
Sounds good. Yeah, my next question is, so in your last video yesterday you mentioned something about like how you have talked about fitting the universe on the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
Can you say more? Like, I didn't get that at all. Like how? Like
You will eventually. You will eventually. I remember. I remember. I think it was Doris Lessing had described that that she could see the universe in the period on the end of a sentence. She was a great. She's my favorite writer, Doris Lessing, great writer from mainly the 20th century. Got the Nobel Prize eventually, she was almost 100 by the time they gave her the Nobel Prize. People didn't like her because she was a Sufi, right? And she thought like a Sufi and she wrote like a Sufi, and people don't have much use for that. But they will. They give it 100 years or so. So at any rate, she had described how the universe in the period at the end of a sentence. And man, I struggled with that. I struggled with that for so long. But now it seems just very obvious that space and time are constructions of the mind. That this is a dream. How much room does one of your dreams take up?
I mean, just the imagination, so nothing.
So could we fit one of your dreams? Let's say you dreamt that you were playing soccer in Wimbledon Stadium,
Mm-hmm.
That's probably a tennis stadium. I don't know. All right, say that you're playing soccer in some big stadium,
Mm-hmm.
and you're running from one end of the field to the other, and the stands are all full. But you're dreaming that. How much space does it take?
I mean, I want to say that it's just a different dimension, so I can't really compare.
Right. Well, what if you dreamt that stadium and you dreamt an entire city around it? Would that be a bigger dream?
It would be similar dream, not bigger.
Yeah, you're a computation guy, right? You can render an entire, world, and you don't use that much more code than if you're. I mean, you don't necessarily have to use more code to do that. It's just a different world, right? How much space? So space is not the question here.
Mm-hmm.
So this world is Maya. This world is imaginary. So space is something that the mind creates, and this is now becoming mainstream science. Finally, it's about time. Have you read the Avatamsaka? You read the Avatamsaka?
Yeah.
Okay, keep chanting, keep chanting the Avatamsaka, and you'll get it. You'll get it eventually, and it becomes like, of course, it's like second nature. This all of this is takes no space. We fill in the space with our minds, but in reality, there's no space there.
Mm-hmm.
But you know this, you can render space with a computer code. When you make a video game and you have to shoot an airplane, right?
Mm-hmm.
You create the space between the ground and the airplane, but there's no real space there. It's all imagined. It's just coded in there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I would think this would be very obvious to all the computer guys. Obviously, we can do that with our minds and with code. The human mind is very easy to trick into believing almost anything, frankly. That's why you have to be careful. But this, I don't think you can. Someone needs to bring me some space and show it to me. Now, Wolfram is talking about little bitty space particles, tiny, 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 at 10 to the minus 100th centimeters. That's the size he decided it was going to be. Good luck, guys. We've been doing this for a long time. There's no... Time and space are relative, and they're created by the mind. Just like they're generated by a game engine. Or a dream, better example, because we know that biologically our brain is quite capable of inventing space, time, action, blood and guts and drama and romance and all this stuff in a dream. It's trivial for the brain to do that. You do it every night. Does it sound crazy? Is what I say sound crazy?
No, I mean, like, if I compare it to to a dream, like an analogy to that,
mm-hmm.
then
which is also created by the mind, by the brain. Go ahead.
Yeah, then it makes sense.
Yeah, that's dreaming is like a big fat hint that God gave us to say, hey, you're not clueless animals here. We're giving you big fat hints as to the nature of reality. Mm-hmm. She's lowered a ladder for us. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, we just have to live good lives too. And that's the fun part. We have to do that also. It's cool. Next question.
Yeah, so this one is on separateness that we were talking about in the video yesterday. So when I focus on any object around me, lately I have been getting this feeling that I can kind of feel the object the way I can feel my hand. So let's say I focus on the bottle next to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's this intuitive feeling that okay, I can actually feel the bottle, like I'm holding it or something like that. Like I can feel the bottle, and then I feel the same when I see a tree or anything. So it seems to me, is it all I'm imagining?
Yeah, how's
Or
that different than a hallucination? Or how's that different than hallucination?
yeah.
Yeah, the hallucination is not what I'm talking about. And neither is Krishnamurti. Okay, so when Krishnamurti, okay, so here there are many stages. Okay, so let's take an easy stage. You go out into the beautiful forest. It's a gorgeous day, and you're one with nature. You just feel peaceful. You feel like the trees and the birds and the breeze, the zephyr, the sun, everything's cooperating to create just a beautiful natural scene, and you're part of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's one level.
Mm-hmm.
There's another level where you feel deeply connected to the creatures, the trees and the birds, and you feel like, hey, I'm just another creature on this earth, right? And then there's another level where you realize that these are part of you. What else could they be? I mean, they're part of you because you are. It becomes almost like incest because okay, so let's see. What you call yourself is up to you. Now, most people call themselves, their face and their body and their mind and their memories and they don't know it, but also their house and their car. They call it that. That's basically them, right? Or their job title or whatever. That's a lot of people. Other people feel, wait a minute, I'm not just them. I mean me. I'm also the other humans, the other people on this earth. Jesus said it really well. He said, what you do unto others, you do unto me. So there's another level of understanding where you realize that you are them too. This is also Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti, Jesus, Buddha, they all say the same thing. Basically that when you see more clearly, you realize we're all one, not thing. We're all the way. We're all nature. We're all the same. We're all equal. We're the same thing. But that's at another level, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can't articulate it very well, but there's stages to this understanding. And again, the Avatamsaka, the flower ornament scripture, will help a lot with this. So exchanging self for other, that's like a basic Buddhist practice, Mahayana practice. I don't know if the Theravada do that, but the Mahayana do that. Exchanging self for other. And then having empathy and then compassion for okay, in Tibetan, compassion means there's no such thing as compassion for other without compassion for self. Because they understand that self and other are the same thing. The only difference is somebody else might be looking through a different set of eyes, or the tree is feeling the sun through its leaves, right? And it has different thoughts than we do, right? But we're all. This is where maybe waking up does help, because then you realize once and for all, and finally, that there's no difference between you and it. You are consciousness itself. Your awareness itself. Your essence is the same as the essence of the tree. Something like that. I'm not doing a very good job this morning, sorry.
Yeah,
and maybe
so
I shouldn't jump ahead, but if you're reading the Avatamsaka, you need to know this, right? Because it's going to bring you there. It will bring you there. To a correct understanding, because when you draw a line between yourself, which is imaginary, and other, which is also imaginary, you've violated separation, which is the vital truth on this earth, right? It's hard to articulate, but it just doesn't make any sense anymore. The other is you, and you are the other. Why do you think I'm here right now? Why do you think you're here right now? You see?
Mm-hmm.
All right?
All right. Yeah.
Best I can do right now, sorry.
Yeah, so I think I have a follow-up question on that. So and I think this is in connection to the exercise of turning the light around. So when I look at an object in a certain way, I think what's happening, it triggers the memory of that object, and through that I feel that object, and then I feel like, okay, I'm actually feeling the object.
Say that again. Say that again.
So when I look at an object, I think it
be concrete. Be concrete. Give me. Don't do me abstract. What object? A stick.
Okay. Let's say I'm looking at my laptop in a certain way. It triggers the memories and sensation of touching that laptop or something, and then with that I feel the laptop, right? And then
Good.
And then in the same way, when I do the turning the light around, and then I like focus on the space or just like behind me or something like that, the feeling I get of awareness and something can it also be just imagination? Like, is everything just imagination?
Okay. Well, first of all, with regard to the laptop thing, that's good because you're learning to direct attention. So you're building up those muscles. You're getting that capacity. So don't minimize it. The fact that you could like focus on the stick, right?
Mm-hmm.
It means you can direct attention, and a lot of people can't. So that's one. So it's good that you're doing that. In other words, you're building up capacity. No, it's not imagination. Everything else is imagination. Awareness is not imagined. It's the only thing that's not imagined.
So I think I'm not able to distinguish the
Your mind just is
experience
getting in your way. No, I think you are, but your mind's getting in your way. You're trying to think, instead of just resting in the awareness, you're trying to figure it out. But anything that you imagine is imagined, except for awareness. That's the one thing that's not imagined in this world. Or big C consciousness, or big L love. Those are not imagined. I know that's not exactly your question, but your question is formulated in such a way that I can't really answer it, because you are your mind, your ego, yourself, your conditioned ideas about how things are, right? Are causing you to what is this? Lack the faith. When there's insufficient faith, there's distrust. So you don't have enough faith in the only thing you can really have faith in, which is awareness itself, that you exist. It's the same thing. How do you exist? Only by awareness. Without awareness, you're gone. That's what we mean by death. We mean awareness leaving the body. So, like so much in the world, it's upside down and it's backwards. The other people that will help with this is the Sufis, especially that series of books that I recommended. Does that help?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah,
You got to be patient too. You got to be patient. You're making progress. You're making good progress, but you got to be patient. Last question, roughly.
I think that's all pretty much what I had.
Okay.
For the last thing, maybe if you can, like, whatever you think telling me would be helpful, if you have something like that, you can We can, like, you can just talk about it, or we can end it.
I think Krishnamurti is very useful here. And I think what would be useful is for you to, he's done it quite a few talks, but they're very, excuse me, they're very abstruse for many people. But he also wrote a book called Reflections on Being. And I think Krishnamurti speaks to it directly, but he doesn't explain how to get there, to actually seeing a tree, or seeing reality. It's very peculiar the way he, because he had such bad experiences with the Theosophists. I think he's very, very reluctant to go too far down the road of explaining how to get there, but he describes what's there. And so I think that that's what I'd recommend in addition to everything else. It's nice to have the different viewpoints, and then sooner or later the penny drops. Boom. All right? Okay, sir. Guard your mind. Yeah, I know it sounds like you're doing that, not wasting time having your mind trashed by these AIs, which are getting more and more sophisticated. I warn people every chance I get. And keep the faith. Yeah. Good.
Yeah. Thank you.
Take care.